Mopping floors can really aggravate low back and neck pain, and yet if the job doesn't get done by you, who's going to do it? If mopping floors is part of your life, and if you want to avoid flare-ups of neck and low back pain, then we're going to share with you some useful tips today that you can use to do that and make wise decisions in the process. So let's get started. You know, if you're going to live in a clean house, then somebody's going to have to mop and clean. And in most cases, especially if you're watching this video, it's probably you, and that's probably why you're watching this now. And so I hope that today we will be able to help you with some tools that will enable you to put them to use wisely to manage the cleaning activities in your home and your environment in a way that can protect you and give you less pain and better quality of life. Now, in order to do that, we want to understand a few principles, and a good part of the strategies that we're going to talk to you have to do with this concept that I often talk to people about when I teach classes like this on ergonomic lifting and activities of daily living, and that is that the most important body part that you use to protect your neck or your spine, in the case of repetitive movements, your wrists and elbows, or whatever body part that you tend to use the most that's putting you at risk, the most important body part is not that body part, it's your brain. It's the decisions that you make, the tools that you use, how wisely you manage that activity, then make a big, big difference in terms of how efficient you are and how much pain you are or are not going to experience in the process. So there are a couple of fundamental concepts I want to talk to you about that we will expand into day-to-day practices and best practices that will make your job more efficient and accomplish the goal that we've set ourselves to today in this patient enlightenment moment. So the first thing to talk about is the idea of repetitive movement. Repetitive movement, you may have heard about with carpal tunnel syndrome, and it occurs in all different kinds of tennis elbow. It's all about concentrating a whole bunch of work into one body part and doing it repetitively. And because of that repetitive use, the part is stressed more, the muscles are fatigued more, they're more prone to inflammation, strain, eventual wearing out and degenerative changes and so forth. So we have to watch any activity that is repetitive in nature, and in cleaning, there's a lot of them. And so managing that, you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. And the best way to solve the problem is to keep it from happening in the first place. You can't unring a bell. And so let's keep the bell from ringing by developing strategies based upon our understanding of repetitive stress disorders and as they apply to cleaning in particular. Another area to address when it comes to cleaning and mopping is the lifting component. Now, you might not think, well, that lifting has a lot to do with cleaning or with mopping, but in fact it's there subtly. You are oftentimes transferring buckets, emptying buckets, leaning your body into environments where lifting and posture related factors associated with lifting and loading of your spine and your other body parts come into play. So recognizing those factors when they exist and managing them so that your risk level is lowered or eliminated can go far to prevent some of the painful repercussions of being inefficient in the process and just getting it done without thinking about it. So thinking it through, understanding these factors leads to managing them effectively, and lifting is an important part of that. Another pretty significant risk factor associated with mopping and cleaning is one that's kind of an inside job again, and that is that we tend to think that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and we're not. We tend to still have the same expectations of our ability to perform and our efficiency as we functioned at 10, 15, 20 or more years ago. It's just not true. Gravity does eventually win. And that doesn't mean we don't fight it every step of the way, but we have to acknowledge that if we're going to successfully manage this condition. So being realistic about the task, the scope of a task, the fatigue factors connected with it, the loss of coordination and strength that come sometimes with the aging process, and managing that so we can still get the job done and not pay big dividends or big penalties, really, relative to pain and function, loss of quality of life, and so forth. It's a factor that we need to take into consideration. And if we do, if we can realize that we're not still 10 feet tall and bulletproof and plan accordingly, it does pay big dividends. So that's a factor we need to talk about as well. Now, with regard to repetitive motion, the most important thing that we can do is we can break up repetitive motion. And we can do that in two important ways. The first way is simply by alternating movements. Now, I know that it's sometimes, if you're strongly right or left hand dominant, it may be difficult to perform some of these tasks as efficiently with the non-dominant hand, but it's a good idea to get in the practice of doing that, because what it does, if you've got an hour of scrubbing, then that's repetitive movement for 1 hour from one hand, but if you can alternate, then that's a half an hour for this hand and a half an hour for this hand. It breaks the load down into 50% of what it would have been had you only done it with one hand. And remembering to do that and planning your work accordingly works well. The other way to ration is temporally, over time. In other words, allot specific amounts of time and specific amounts of rest period, and don't be as aggressive as you might have been in the past in terms of making those assignments. Don't say, oh, I've got guests coming on Thursday, I got to clean my house on Wednesday. If you've got guests coming on Thursday, start Sunday and break it up into digestible portions that are not going to take such a toll on you that by the time your guests arrive, you're a wreck and uncomfortable and not having fun anyway. So be smart. Ration these things into periods of time and be generous and gentle with yourself in terms of expectations. Now, about posture. There are a few principles and a few tools to be aware of here. One of them is that the further away from your body the work is done, or the tasks that you're performing, the further they are from your body, the more physical stress they place upon your body. It's harder to do a task out here than it is to do a task in here. It takes a greater toll on your body. So move your body as close to your work as you can. And as you're working along, don't let your work get ahead of you. Bring your body to where the work is and continue to do that. Keep your body close to your work area, as close as you can comfortably be. Obviously not tight in, but where you are very efficient and comfortable and it's not creating a strain on you. Face your work. Have it in front of you. Don't get into a situation where you're twisting your spine and moving. And this also applies to being careful about climbing into spaces and under spaces and cleaning in areas that are difficult to get to, mopping in areas that are difficult to get to. Think about these things and manage them. It's inevitable that you're going to have to do some of this, but if you think about it, if you make a plan on how to approach it using these principles, it will provide a benefit for you and take away some of the pain and irritating factors involved. In that same category, go ahead and move obstacles out of the way that can be moved so that you give yourself a free and open work area in which you can maneuver and apply these principles. Then move the furniture back in or the obstacles back into the work area after that. Professional house cleaners do this all the time in hotels and in other areas of the hospitality industry. And don't be afraid to ask for some help. It's okay to ask for help. Get somebody to help you move that furniture out, move it back in when you're finished. It's all right to do that. And sometimes it helps people feel useful, like they're helping you as well. Now, I mentioned expectations and rationing and building in rest periods. One of the things that I did not mention that I do want to throw in is that when you begin to become fatigued, your efficiency drops off, and that means that it takes longer to accomplish the task, so in the long run it's less efficient. But also, as one becomes fatigued, one's decision-making process is not as good, and it's very well demonstrated in science that industrial-related injuries, work-related injuries, injuries in a hospitality industry and so forth often occur at ends of shifts when people are fatigued. So this is another good reason why you want to break those work periods up into periods in which you are not fatigued. You quit before you're fatigued, because it's in that tail where you're fatigued where you tend to make decisions that can result in even bigger injuries, slips and falls, and the kinds of things that can have bad consequences. So give yourself a break. Give yourself a bunch of breaks. Don't work till you're tired. Work smart instead. All right, so let's jump into some specific techniques with regard to mopping. And the first recommendation is vacuum before you mop. And you might want to watch our Chiropractic Health channel video on how to vacuum wisely for vacuuming tips. But the idea is get the big stuff out of the way so that you don't have to be picking it up with the mopping process. So vacuum first. Rinse and wring often. This results in you not maintaining a static posture. You're able to change posture and move around, and in the long run, it creates an environment for more efficient cleaning. We typically tell people to move your body as close to your work as you can and sort of follow your work, keeping your work close to you. But in the case of mopping, that's actually not what we recommend. With mopping, we want you to use good posture as a foundation and let your upper extremities do the work. And so be in one place and take it as far out as you comfortably can, and we'll talk about mop handle length and so forth in a moment. But be in one place, perform the tasks, then move to a different place and use your upper body more. Our recommendation is to use the upper body movement more in mopping than in other cleaning applications. As I mentioned earlier, you want to use a mop with an adjustable handle, and you want to set that adjustable handle to your particular physical dimensions. So it needs to be high enough so that when it's standing directly in front of you, vertical, the top of the mop handle should approximately be at the level of your shoulder, and when the mop head is in use, the handle end should be around chest level. Doing so will decrease the amount of strain on your body. And one size does not fit all, one size fits one. So get a mop handle that's adjustable. Most experts on the subject recommend that when you mop, follow an S pattern on the floor, moving your feet as you go. This practice enables you to follow the other rules that we've already mentioned. Now, the last thing I want to discuss with you is how you're going to use the information on this video. What we want to do is we want your behavior to change by learning something and saying, okay, that's worth doing, I'm going to start doing it. And it's not really realistic to expect that that's going to happen all in one viewing of this video. And so we know that one learns through repetitive exposure. And so I want to encourage you to use this video as a resource. Come back to it from time to time. You know you're going to go clean something, say, I'm going to watch that video. Pick one thing you're going to focus on and make it habituated. Become competent at that particular aspect of it. We have a video on developing permanent competencies that we have on the Chiropractic Health channel you might want to watch. But own that, develop that competency, do it one at a time or a couple at a time until you get really good at this. But use this video as a resource. And I promise you that if you do that, you're going to work smarter. You're going to have probably a cleaner environment, or at least as clean as you have now. Not to imply that your environment is not clean. And finally, you're going to have less pain and you're going to have a higher quality of life as a result of that. So I really hope that you will use these tools to your advantage and that you have a very good result with it. Good luck. Thank you for your time and attention today. This Chiropractic Health Channel presentation has been brought to you by the Bennett Clinic. At the Bennett Clinic, we combine chiropractic care, massage therapy, physical rehabilitation, and more to help our patients get off the downhill pain management treadmill to nowhere and live the life that they want and deserve. Find out more about how we at the Bennett Clinic can help you by visiting the Bennett Clinic website at www.bennettclinic.net or call for an appointment at 928-771-9400. For many more health enlightenment moments, just click the subscribe button below. And if you liked what you learned today, please click the like button as well.